On a crisp autumn day in 1995, the quiet town of Vicksburg, Mississippi, became the backdrop for a chilling mystery. Jacqueline Levitz, a 62-year-old widow who had inherited a vast furniture fortune, vanished without a trace from her home. The date was November 18th, and it would mark the beginning of a perplexing case that would haunt investigators for years to come. Jacqueline's bedroom told a grim tale. Blood-stained sheets and signs of a violent struggle painted a picture of foul play, leaving little doubt that something sinister had befallen the wealthy heiress. As news of her disappearance spread, a web of suspicion began to weave itself around various individuals in Jacqueline's life. Investigators cast a wide net, scrutinizing everyone from Jacqueline's own son to members of her late husband's family. Even a mother-son duo of con artists, later convicted for a similar crime, found themselves under the harsh glare of suspicion, yet despite exhaustive efforts, no concrete evidence emerged to link anyone to Jacqueline's vanishing act. As days turned into weeks and weeks into months, Jacqueline Levitz remained missing, her fate unknown. The trail, once hot with potential leads, gradually cooled, leaving behind a haunting question. What really happened to Jacqueline Levitz on that fateful November day? Jackie Levitz's life was a tapestry of contrasts, woven with threads of humble beginnings and extravagant wealth. Born Mary Jacqueline Broadway in Oak Grove, Louisiana, she was one of 9 children raised on a cotton farm by sharecropper parents. Despite these modest roots, Jackie's ambition and business acumen propelled her into a successful career in real estate, where she built a personal fortune of $4 million through her savvy in buying, renovating, and selling houses. Her personal life was equally dynamic. Jackie's first marriage in the late 1950s was brief but gave her a son, Walter. After a second marriage to Bank Smith ended with his death in 1969, Jackie's life took a dramatic turn in 1987 when she wed Ralph Levitz, a man more than 2 decades her senior and the millionaire head of the Levitz furniture empire. Ralph, along with his brother, had transformed their family's Pennsylvania furniture store into a nationwide chain, pioneering the concept of warehouse-style furniture stores. By the time he met Jackie, Ralph was a 5-time divorcee, with a son named Philip, living a comfortable retirement in Palm Beach, Florida. As Mrs. Levitz, Jackie found herself thrust into the glittering world of Palm Beach's social elite. However, this chapter of her life was cut short in March 1995, when Ralph, at 82, succumbed to a fatal stroke. His passing left Jackie a widow, an heiress to a staggering $15 million estate. Yearning to reconnect with her roots, she purchased a 2,900 square foot home overlooking the mighty Mississippi River, with grand plans to expand it into a 7,000 square foot haven for family gatherings. Jackie threw herself into an extensive remodeling project, hiring a crew of 40 workers to bring her vision to life. On November 18th, just 5 weeks after settling in Vicksburg, Jackie visited a local store to buy wallpaper. The clock struck 4:30 p.m. as she made her purchase, unaware that these mundane moments would be her last known actions. 2 days of unanswered calls set alarm bells ringing for Jackie's sister, Tiki Shivers. Concern mounting, Tiki dispatched her husband, James Earl, to check on Jackie. Arriving at the house, James found Jackie's Jaguar convertible in the driveway, its presence in stark contrast to the eerie silence that greeted him. With the front door unlocked, James stepped into a nightmare. Jackie's bedroom bore the unmistakable signs of a violent struggle. A large blood spot marred the carpet. The closet door hung damaged, and scattered across the floor lay the broken tips of Jackie's fake fingernails, silent witnesses to her ordeal. The police arrived at a grim scene. Jackie's bedsheets were missing, and the mattress, turned over in a futile attempt to hide the truth, was soaked with blood that would later match Jackie's type. The sheer volume of blood led investigators to a chilling hypothesis. Jackie's throat may have been cut. A glass of water and a pair of $3,000 diamond earrings rested on the window seat, while a small television perched nearby, still humming with life. A chair positioned in front of the window suggested that Jackie had been enjoying her nightly ritual of gazing at the Mississippi River when tragedy struck. Curiously, the scene defied simple explanations. Despite the apparent violence, valuable fur coats hung untouched in the closet, and a safe containing $500,000 in jewelry remained unopened. Only Jackie's purse and makeup bag were missing, casting doubt on robbery as a motive. A neighbor's son, visiting from out of town, provided a potential lead. While walking his dog between 10 and 11 p.m. on November 18th, he heard a vehicle start near the Levitz home. Faint tire tracks on the lawn suggested someone may have backed a vehicle to the front door, possibly to remove Jackie's body. As the investigation unfolded, attention turned to potential suspects. Jackie's son Walter, despite standing to inherit her estate, was quickly ruled out, being over 1,000 miles away in Maryland at the time. The Levitz family also came under scrutiny, as Ralph's estate would be divided among his grandchildren in the event of Jackie's death. However, no evidence linked them to her disappearance. With Jackie's body still missing, the case entered legal limbo. It would be at least 5 years before she could be declared legally dead, leaving her substantial estate, a combination of her $4 million personal fortune and Ralph's $15 million inheritance, in a state of uncertain suspension. The investigation into Jackie's disappearance took a new turn as attention shifted to the construction crew working on her home. With no signs of forced entry, investigators theorized that the perpetrator might have accessed the house through the under-construction attic. The crew of about 40 contractors, including some drifters and at least one with a prior burglary conviction, came under scrutiny, despite a suspicious scratch on one worker's face and Jackie having fired a couple of crew members. The construction team cooperated fully with the police and were ultimately not considered serious suspects. A week before her disappearance, employees at the wallpaper store recalled seeing Jackie arrive with an unidentified man in a pickup truck. This mysterious figure added another layer to the already complex case. Jackie's brief time in Vicksburg, just 5 weeks, had left her with few local connections. Most of her time was devoted to home renovations, and many residents were unaware of the wealthy heiress in their midst until her disappearance made headlines. This isolation led to speculation that Jackie might have fallen victim to a botched ransom kidnapping. The proximity of Jackie's home to the Mississippi River raised the possibility that her body had been disposed of in its waters. Despite extensive searches, no trace was found, with the strong currents potentially carrying evidence as far as the Gulf of Mexico. As the investigation stalled, authorities began to explore a potential connection between Jackie's case and another missing wealthy woman. In July 1998, the disappearance of 82-year-old Irene Silberman from her $7 million Manhattan mansion drew striking parallels to Jackie Levitz's case. The investigation led to Kenny Kimes, a 23-year-old tenant who had recently moved into one of Silberman's apartments. Kenny and his 64-year-old mother, Santa Kimes, were soon revealed to be a notorious mother-son con artist duo with a history of targeting wealthy victims. Kenny eventually confessed to strangling Irene Silberman at his mother's behest, disposing of her body in New Jersey. He also admitted to their involvement in the murder of Syed Balil Ahmed, a wealthy Bahamas banker, in 1996, though no charges were filed for this crime. San Kimes died in prison in 2014, while Kenny remains incarcerated. In the wake of the Kimes case, investigators explored a potential connection to Jackie Levitz's disappearance, given the duo's history of targeting wealthy victims. However, despite Sante's meticulous record-keeping of her schemes, no mention of Jackie was found among the seized evidence, leaving this tantalizing lead ultimately unfulfilled. In 2001, at her family's request, Jackie was legally declared dead. Her $4 million personal estate passed to her son, Walter, with Jackie's sister Tiki serving as co-executor. The $15 million inherited from Ralph Levitz was placed in trust for his grandchildren, as originally planned. Walter's passing in 2006 led to further dispersal of Jackie's assets, but the central mystery remained unsolved. 22 years on, Jackie's case continues to baffle investigators. The blood evidence points to a violent end within her home, but the perpetrator and motive remain elusive. Unlike some victims who amass enemies through unethical dealings, Jackie was known for her kindness and generosity. Her rags to riches story had seemingly left her grounded, never forgetting her humble beginnings. Jackie married a wealthy man, Ralph, who was 20 years her senior, but long before that, she had already built her own fortune. Their marriage wasn't about money. When Ralph suffered a stroke shortly after they wed, Jackie devoted herself to his care until his death in 1995. This commitment suggests genuine love rather than financial interest. Despite inheriting an additional $15 million from Ralph, Jackie grew weary of the Palm Beach elite lifestyle. She chose to move to a modest town in Mississippi, closer to her family, embracing a simpler life with nothing but plastic furniture in her new home, a stark contrast to her previous luxury. However, Jackie wasn't universally admired. An article in the Palm Beach Post in January 1996 painted a different picture based on an interview with Ann Pellegrino, the daughter of Jackie's second husband, Bank Smitty Smith. Smitty's children didn't think highly of Jackie, especially after Smitty's sudden death in 1969. According to them, when Smitty first felt chest pains, Jackie delayed taking him to the hospital, making a stop at a bank before driving an hour to a hospital instead of a closer one. Smitty was reportedly so shaken by this that he planned to divorce Jackie, but he died of heart failure before he could. Jackie then engaged in legal battles with Smitty's children over his will, leaving them convinced she was cold and calculating. While Jackie's family dismissed these claims, it does raise the question of what enemies she might have had. Over 25 years after Smitty's death, could someone from his family have harbored a grudge, enough to seek revenge after learning of Ralph's death and Jackie's inheritance? But with that much time passed, it seems unlikely. There were also rumors that Jackie's son, Walter, might have hired someone to kill her, given that he was the beneficiary of her $4 million estate. Though Walter had an alibi, there was speculation that someone from Ralph's family, perhaps wanting to claim Ralph's estate, could have been involved. But if Jackie was murdered for her inheritance, it makes little sense that her body was never found. Without a body, no one could claim her estate for at least 5 years, suggesting that financial gain wasn't the motive. Interestingly, the Northern Trust Bank of Florida tried to have Jackie declared dead as early as 1997 so Ralph's assets could be divided among his grandchildren, but her sister, Tiki, fought against this, and the attempt was dropped. Regardless, investigators found no evidence linking Walter or any family members to her disappearance. Yet an intriguing detail emerged. In April 1995, Jackie lent $70,000 to two of her brothers, Joe and Don Broadway, to buy property in Arkansas. In May 1997, Jackie's brothers, Joe and Don, were supposed to start repaying a $70,000 loan she had given them with the property they purchased in Arkansas as collateral. However, Jackie disappeared before the payment plan could begin, though the original promissory note was found among her belongings. After Jackie was declared dead, her sister Tiki, who became the administrator of her estate, believed she was entitled to either the repayment or the property. She took her brothers to court, but the court ruled in favor of Joe and Don. Multiple witnesses testified that Jackie had forgiven the debt but hadn't destroyed the promissory note before she vanished. Despite suspicions that the brothers might have had a motive to get rid of Jackie to avoid repayment, the story about the forgiven debt held up in court, and there was no reason to believe they were involved in her disappearance. The perplexing aspect of Jackie's case is the effort to dispose of her body, despite clear evidence of a violent crime in her bedroom. Blood was everywhere, false fingernails were scattered on the floor, and the mattress was simply flipped over to hide the bloodstains. Yet no attempt was made to clean up the scene. This suggests that the perpetrator wasn't trying to cover up a crime, but may have wanted to get rid of forensic evidence. However, DNA profiling was still relatively new in 1995, making this theory less likely. The tire tracks outside, coupled with a witness hearing a car start, indicate that Jackie's body was likely taken from her home that night. Another curious detail is that Jackie had only lived in Vicksburg for 5 weeks before her disappearance. She had only met a few people, mostly her neighbors, who seemed to like her. Despite her family's wealth and the recognition of Levitz furniture, many locals didn't know who she was, or that she was an heiress. Nonetheless, Jackie's arrival in town, moving into a relatively expensive house under renovation, could have drawn the attention of someone who realized she had money. Interestingly, shortly after her disappearance, 2 young men were arrested for attempting to burglarize her empty house, but were cleared of any involvement in her case. Although there were valuables left in the house, including fur coats, a safe with jewelry, and even her $3,000 diamond earrings left out in the open, nothing was taken. This suggests that robbery wasn't the motive, leading to speculation that her disappearance might have been a botched ransom kidnapping. But even in that scenario, it's puzzling why the intruder wouldn't have taken the valuables. The case has drawn comparisons to the disappearance of Irene Silverman, another wealthy woman who went missing, which was linked to con artists Sante and Kenny Kaimes. However, the Kaimeses were known for carefully planned schemes, slowly gaining their victims' trust before exploiting them and only resorting to murder if necessary. Jackie, having just moved to Vicksburg, didn't fit their typical target profile. She wasn't living in luxury when she disappeared. Her house was under construction and barely furnished, and there was no evidence connecting the Kimmises to Jackie in any way. If Sante and Kenny Kaimes had murdered Jackie, they wouldn't have left behind her diamond earrings, fur coats, and other valuables. Their crimes were calculated for financial gain, and nothing about Jackie's case suggests their involvement. But if not them, who could have done it? Investigators found a large amount of blood on Jackie's mattress, leading them to suspect her throat had been slashed, an act that seemed deeply personal. One of the prevailing theories was that someone from the construction crew working on her house might have been responsible. Jackie was known for her warmth and hospitality, often bringing food and refreshments to the workers, making it easy for one of them to develop a fixation on her. They all knew she was living alone in an unfinished house, making her vulnerable. With no signs of a break-in, it's possible the perpetrator had been inside, waiting for her to return from town. November 18th, the day of her disappearance, was a Saturday, and it's likely the crew had the weekend off, meaning Jackie was alone. The attacker might not have intended to kill her, but could have escalated to violence during an attempted sexual assault, resulting in a bloody scene. Some of the crew members seemed like promising suspects. One had a criminal record, another had a scratch on his face, but none could be conclusively linked to the crime, leaving the case unsolved. One intriguing lead was an eyewitness who saw Jackie being dropped off at a store by a man in a pickup truck a week before she disappeared. The man was likely from the construction crew, but he was never identified. It's possible the witness was mistaken, or the man in the truck was just a red herring. An alternative theory is that Jackie might have become romantically involved with someone who eventually killed her. However, the evidence from her bedroom suggests she was attacked by surprise, not by someone she knew intimately. Another theory revolves around Levitz Furniture's financial troubles. Just a month before Jackie's disappearance, a deal with Montgomery Ward fell apart, causing the company's stock to drop 22%. Over the year, declining sales led to 1,000 job cuts. Levitz eventually declared bankruptcy in 1997 and liquidated its stores. Given Jackie's status as the heiress to the Levitz empire, it's possible a disgruntled former employee or someone affected by the company's decline sought revenge. But this seems unlikely, as neither Jackie nor her late husband Ralph, who had retired in 1983, had any control over the company by that time. In the end, none of the theories make perfect sense, but the most plausible one is that Jackie was the victim of a random predator. This person might have fixated on her when she arrived in town but never actually met her, which is why they never surfaced as a suspect. Jackie was a glamorous woman who stood out, making her a likely target. It's possible the attacker was a drifter who worked briefly on the construction crew and left town immediately after the murder, evading a thorough investigation. Given that Jackie wasn't reported missing for 2 days, the perpetrator could have been long gone before the police got involved. Despite the overwhelming evidence that Jackie was murdered, the perpetrator or perpetrators left no clues to their identity. They've managed to evade justice for over 20 years. I suspect that Jackie's body was placed in the Mississippi River, where the currents likely carried it to a place where it will never be found. Although her family may never get to give her a proper burial, they deserve to see her killer brought to justice. If you have any information about the unsolved disappearance of Jacqueline Levitz, please contact the authorities. And if you have your own theories about what happened, feel free to share them in the comments. Thanks for watching Secret Sleuths. If you enjoyed this mystery, hit like, subscribe, and turn on notifications for more unsolved cases. Keep sleuthing.